Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee on this Sunday night as we are now finally at the end of this long 4-day holiday weekend. Or for some people, maybe it was a 5-day holiday weekend, or maybe you took all of last week off. Maybe you got Monday off. However, you've got it created. For most people, it's Thursday through Sunday. We've got weather going on. Travelers heading into Chicago, for example, are dealing with a snowstorm for this time of year. It looks like it's going to be a 5 to maybe some amounts close to 10 inches in some places. And we've got all sorts of blizzard warnings up. I think it's the first ones of the year, really, that we've seen throughout parts of the middle Mississippi Valley and into the Midwest. That storm is going to bring another round of rain for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. And it's also going to bring probably some heavy snow for northern New England, away from the coast at least. And that'll be for Monday night into Tuesday. We've got another one of these situations where we've got a primary low. The primary low right now coming out of the Central Plains, that's going to be running into the eastern lakes. And it will gradually die out after that as it occludes. And then we're going to see it redevelop on the Jersey coast, or just inland of the Jersey coast, sometime tomorrow night. With respect to the folks that live in my area from eastern Pennsylvania, but particularly from New Jersey to southern New England and Long Island and southeastern New York, the storm from last night, that low, that very tight little low, formed a comma head of heavy rains that kind of stalled out over the area for several hours last night. And rainfall amounts of 2 to 3 inches were pretty widespread. So even though we did get a 1 day break, and the rainfall for tomorrow probably looks to be on the order of an inch, plus or minus a quarter of an inch either way. Higher amounts as you go east of New York City, by the way. The threshold for flooding is pretty low. Even though the rain was long gone since early this morning, they're still dealing with flood advisories across much of New Jersey. For example, the rivers, the streams, very high. The area down where Johnny Quest is in in the western parts of Virginia, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, remains absolutely saturated. So any additional rains are going to be problematic. Let me just say one real quick. Mirtha Gunter, you're on tonight, one of our regulars. So sorry to hear about the passing of your mother-in-law. Our prayers and all our prayers and light your way and your family's way. Okay, to the rainfall map we go as we take a look. I'm going to start with WPC's map. I just want to kind of break down the moisture here. Notice that in the area where we've got the heavy snows, a lot of this is front end loaded. So the total rainfall amounts here, this is for the next 7 days, but you can see where the max areas are across the Midwest, the middle Mississippi Valley to the lower lakes. And then, of course, you've got rain for Pennsylvania and on up into New England on the order of up to 2 or 3 inches. And then it gets a little patchy as you move south and west of there. Although, Johnny, if you're looking at this map, you can see there's sort of patchy heavy rain there of an 1.5 to 2 inches showing up for your neck of the woods. And then it gets heavier in western North Carolina. There's actually what looks like a 3 or 4 inch rain max here drawn in for a small section where South Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee, and well, not Tennessee, but North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, the 3-state border there, where they all meet. Also, some heavier rains for South Florida, and bombardment of heavy rain out in the west from central and northern California all the way up the coast through Oregon and Washington, and we're talking about 5-inch plus amounts there. So, we've got this split flow in the upper atmosphere that's keeping a ridge up in the northwestern part of Canada, and at the same time, you've got a strong jet from the Pacific coming in with shortwave after shortwave, and that's bringing in the heavy rains into the western part of the United States. Why don't we take a look at what's going on first off in the Midwest. And we're going to start tonight. Let me move the snowfall map over first from the Weather Service's compilation of forecasts. So, it all through the last couple of days as we've been watching this low, we've noticed how the models were shifting south and east, south and east, south and east. So Chicago went from being on the edge to a couple of inches to now kind of being right in the thick of it with regards to snowfall accumulations. And their official forecast for Chicago from their weather service for downtown Chicago is for 4 to 8. The 11 there might be on the lakefront somewhere with the northeast wind coming in off the lake. You're probably going to have some enhancement of that snowfall downwind of that, just inland. So that's probably what that patch of heavy snow is all about. And in general, it's a 5 to 8 inch snowfall that runs back into northeastern Missouri, across much of northern and northwestern Illinois, through Chicago, on the east side there as we go into western Michigan, Grand Rapids southward, and then the snows continue on the order of a 5 to some max amounts of 8, 9, or 10. Now Detroit is now at the moment on the southern end, with amounts being indicated of about an inch or two. So, if the low were to shift a little bit further to the south, that could bring some higher amounts into the Motor City. If it tucks in a bit further north, you might wind up with a coating to an inch or even less. So at this point, it's just kind of watching the hourly temperatures and seeing where they take you going forward. Here are the current temperatures, by the way. The last time I checked over at in Chicago, I'll give it a check right now. You'll notice that the temperatures now are all in the upper 20s and low 30s in the orange areas, which indicate where the blizzard warning is tonight across northeastern Missouri to the lake shores from Chicago on northward. I'm thinking that Milwaukee is, I can't see. Let me just get this a little bit tighter. Maybe the city will come up. There it is. So Milwaukee's actually in the winter storm warning area. The counties below that are the ones that are in the blizzard warning. You've got winter weather advisories on the southern end. You've got winter weather advisories over Michigan, and then the northeastern. Well, I don't know what you would call that. The northern part of southeastern Michigan, near is that Saginaw? I can't see. I got to get new glasses. We're looking at temperatures right now there in the mid to upper 30s, but they are also under the winter storm warning. So as the low center starts to move northeastward, the colder air that is sitting just to the north, the 20s and low 30s, that comes down, and you get whatever rain that is occurring to change over to snow. We can actually take a look at what is going on in Chicago at the moment. We'll go to their weather service page and see what's happening. So Chicago actually just changed over because they were raining an hour ago. They just changed over to snow. The temperature was 39 at O'Hare. When I checked a little bit after 8 o'clock, it's now 33. So they've had a 6-degree drop. Let me see what the OB says. We'll go to the observation page and take a look. So they got 36. This is at Midway. Midway is 36 with light rain. And oh, you know what's a better one? We'll go the more local weather. Take a look. So DuPage Airport is snow and fog 33. Aurora is light snow and 33. Chicago International O'Hare light snow and 33. Kenosha 34 light snow. Still raining at Gary. Cloudy at Lansing. On the Michigan side. Chicago, that's Midway, is light rain at 36. So they're probably going to change in the next hour. Chicago Wheeling Airport, light snow there, 34. And Waukegan Regional Chicago Airport at 33. So this is their turn. New York City and points surrounding in north and west. We got our snows here last Thursday, November 15th. New York City getting six inches out of it, and just inland of the coast, it was generally a 6 to 12 inch snowfall. And now it is Chicago's turn. Should have the latest 0Z map. We'll bring it up here for you. And there's our low that has intensified a bit now as it is moving up into south central Illinois. The polar frontal boundary has pushed southward here, where all the winds have gone north northeast. So that's the colder air starting to come in. We'll watch this progress from today. We'll start from 7 a.m. this morning when the low center was down in southeastern Kansas. And as the day has progressed, we've seen that low move across central Missouri. It went north of St. Louis, now into just central Illinois is where it is at the moment. The warm front with that runs across central Indiana down into southern West Virginia and Virginia, 50s and 60s to the south of there in the warm sector. And this is going to intensify even further going forward during the overnight hours. And the radar, we'll give the radar a fresh look here. So you got that signature, that comma-shaped signature on the radar loop as it moves on to the northeast. And whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry about that. Let me bring that back up. There we go. So there you got, there's that comma-shaped signature. So this is a fairly impressive short wave with the cold air that's coming down from the upper Midwest, from Minnesota, Wisconsin, and northern Michigan and into central Canada, just kind of pressing in. It's not bitter cold Arctic air. It's just cold enough. And probably, if you want to measure it in terms of the time of year, it matches up pretty well. It's not like the air mass that came into the east Wednesday night, Thursday into Friday, that bitter cold air mass that came into the eastern part of the United States. And now we're starting to see some rain and showers develop on the southern flank of this as you run down the west side of the Appalachians into Georgia and North Florida, even a little bit of convection there on the Florida Panhandle with some thunderstorms. We are also beginning to see some rains coming into the Pacific Northwest after what was a dry start to the day, starting to get rains coming in, and this is the next round of moisture and precipitation that's going to be eventually moving to the east, and you're going to get a series of these, and it looks like as we go through the long range that we've got a couple of storms that are going to be taking similar tracks to this and having different impacts as far as the weather goes in the eastern part of the United States. Let me just show you, there are some other watches and warnings that are up that are relevant to all of this. And there you go. So we've got winter storm watches up for much of Maine except for the coastal counties, and also for northern New Hampshire. And it looks like we've got a couple of winter storm watches for the east side of Lake Ontario. Probably going to see a few more go up. Maybe add northern Vermont and possibly even northeastern New York to the mix here. And you'll probably wind up seeing winter weather advisories being posted for the areas just to the south. I think this is going to be a 5 to 10 inch snowstorm for northern New England away from the coast, and there probably will be some 1 foot plus amounts. Now, in my area, for New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, extreme eastern Pennsylvania, a small portion of the lower Hudson Valley to New York City, we've got flood watches up, and that's because, again, we had those big rains last night, which produced several inches in some places. So if we wind up with another inch or an inch and a half, the flood threshold is very, very low. High wind warnings and wind advisories for the middle Mississippi Valley, down into the Tennessee Valley, Kentucky, western Tennessee, into parts of Arkansas, and even down into northeast Texas, northwest Louisiana. We have high wind warnings up there, and you've got the wind advisories in some of the surrounding areas in Indiana, Ohio, and in eastern Kentucky. And out in the west, you've got some winter weather advisories that are up now for parts of Washington State once you go far enough inland. But the action really right now is going to be focused on the eastern half of the U.S. Going to update this satellite loop. Let's freshen it up a little bit. So as we move, watching sunset coming in from the east, you've got subtropical moisture It more of that subtropical moisture seems to be, you see how it's kind of streaming in. The storm system's dragging that subtropical jet into toward the Appalachians. So this is going to be the moisture from for the rain area. We're starting to see those rains pop up on the leading edge of it, and the swirl, the signature on the satellite, certainly gives credence to the fact that the storm is fairly strong and moving along toward the northeast. And if you look out in the west, you can see a ton of clouds from the Pacific starting to roll on in over into the west coast. So why don't we start off with the HRRR? I think that's as good as any. Somebody had posted on a message about why do I always use the GFS? Well, because of the maps that are available publicly, and thank you for Tropical Tidbits, tropicaltidbits.com, that we get these, able to use these maps on our videos. It's really the ones that have the most complete set, and what winds up happening is the I only have, I could stay here for do a 2-hour live stream every night and go through every model. I just kind of try to focus on the ones that I think are the ones that you have to pay attention to. The European, what we have of the European, the GFS, and the NAM, I think, are the ones that are front and center when it's relevant. The HRRR, and you see the HRRR's surface low crosses Indiana, goes into Northwest Ohio. Yeah, Detroit is kind of in this sort of funny place here because the low, if it's a handful of miles further to the south, that's going to make a huge difference for Detroit. If it's a handful of miles further to the north, it's going to make a huge difference as well. But this is for the next 16 hours as far as the snow is concerned. It will be out of Chicago by a little after 7, 8 a.m. and it's done. And then gradually it's going to pull out of Michigan. But just want to see what the 10-to-1 snow ratios are, because I think we can use those pretty fair. And the HRRR, it's got a 2 printed out for Detroit, and just north of Detroit, you've got this band of 5 to 10 inches that runs across southern Michigan, back through Chicago, just south of Milwaukee, through northern Illinois. It's perhaps a little bit further south than where you've got the blizzard warnings extend actually a bit further north than that. But remember that the criteria for blizzard is 3 hours of heavy snow. So you could have a blizzard warning and the wind. So if you 3 hours of heavy snow and gales. So it's not a foot plus of snow. It's a condition of visibility and wind, that combination. So you could have a blizzard for with 3 hours of heavy snow. And actually, technically, you can have a blizzard with very little snow actually falling, but if you've got blowing snow with visibilities near zero and gales, that creates what is really a blizzard. Over the years, I think the East has taken the word blizzard and kind of converted it to mean a heavy snowstorm of 1 to 2 feet and wind and the temperature criteria. There used to be a temperature criteria in there. You had to be under 20 degrees. So you didn't see the blizzard warning very often. And then we had the mess a couple of years ago where blizzard warnings were put up and the rain snow line wound up being a handful of miles further north. The coast got spared any kind of snow, but not even that far inland with a foot plus of snow and blizzard conditions. But they changed it now. There are no blizzard watches anymore. Blizzard warnings will only be issued when you actually have it occurring. It's going to be just like a severe thunderstorm warning. That's pretty much how it's going to function. Okay, so the HRRR runs pretty consistent with all the other model snow forecasts, and we can jump to the NAM model here. We've got actually enough of the new NAM, and the NAM also pretty consistent. Actually, a little bit further to the north is the NAM, especially in Michigan with that snowfall, and then it will shift into northern New England and northeastern New York, where the NAM is somewhat aggressive with about 8 to 12 in areas from northeastern New York over through much of interior Maine. You'll have to go inland of the coast by about 30 or 40 miles, although the NAM tries to bring some measurable down closer to the coast, but it would look to me like it would be much further inland. So we do actually have the new NAM tonight. So why don't we take a look at what it's doing with this system, and we'll bring it up. This is after the fact, so I'm back. Okay. And we'll just give it a moment to finish loading. Do, 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 do. Hello. All right, there we go. All right, so this is our new NAM. We've changed over to snow now in Chicago, so it snows all night. The darker blue heavy snow on the NAM. You know, very supportive of this. Again, Detroit on that edge, showing rain with the low moving across northern Indiana, northern Ohio. Then it changes over Monday morning. So you know what? You get on the backside. Meanwhile, the rain is approaching my neck of the woods by about noontime, 1 o'clock, and you start to get another outbreak of heavy rain. And the reason for this is kind of like what happened yesterday, with one important difference. And I think this is time now that we bring up the, we're going to bring up the paint box to show you what's going on. So let's go to that. Okay, so here is the NAM. This is for 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. We have the low that has now reached its peak intensity. It is occluding, and the occluded front is running. Let me center that picture just a little bit better. So the occluded front is running just about like this, okay? And now we're going to have what is known as the triple point, and that is the point where you have the warm front, the occluded front, and the cold front meet, okay? So right there is the triple point, and it's on that triple point, by the way, that we are going to get the beginnings of a secondary low. And that secondary low is going to wind up taking over from the primary. The primary is only going to be able to get so far. There's higher pressures up in northeastern Canada. It kind of hits that wall. The secondary low is going to take over, and then that secondary low is going to track on to the northeast. And it's going to probably do it. Whoops. There we go. Get this under control here. The secondary low is probably going to do it just inland of the coast and then come out somewhere in the Gulf of Maine. So once it completely takes over, all this cold air that we have, that's going to be all up through here. This is all cold air, all back through here. This is all going to wind up collapsing into northern New England. And then, of course, you get the cold air that's going to sweep in behind the front there. So this is all cold. Okay, here's your warm sector right here. So don't be too surprised if you wind up seeing some heavy downpours and some thunderstorms in the eastern Carolinas as the cold front approaches and moves on through. And you wind up with that secondary low taking over. The difference, though, between last night and this time around is that the secondary low last night kind of started down here somewhere off the southeast coast. So it made a really long track northward, whereas this secondary low is probably going to start somewhere in Chesapeake Bay. So you're going to see a flare up of some heavy rains, but they may wind up flaring up more in southeastern New England, eastern Connecticut, Rhode Island, and on up into eastern Massachusetts and southeastern New Hampshire could perhaps be more in line for the heavier rain this time around, on the order of 1.5 inches or 2 inches, as opposed to what happened last night, which for me was the several inch affair. And all of that, by the way, came in a very, very short period of time. So the secondary is going to take over. You can see it there sitting right over Long Island. By 10 p.m., much of the rain is over with. And by the way, here's your, some of your convection that you might see along the Carolina Outer Banks. So that lifts up to the northeast. There's your secondary low that gets up to near Boston, intensifies, fairly significantly down to a 989 low. And now you've got mostly snow as you go into New Hampshire, interior Maine, Vermont, and through much of northeast New York. I've noticed that the NAM was pretty good with the system from November 15th in terms of the temperature profiles. The GFS was too warm, and I'm just wondering. I will wonder about this out loud. But here is the NAM model for Tuesday morning, and I'm going to bring up the GFS just to see if there's any big difference. And the GFS continues to show this kind of warm bias. So I'm going to lean with the colder NAM solution because of the fact that the system from last week was wound up being colder. There were different reasons for why it'd be colder. This is all going to be driven by the deepening low, whereas the system back on November 15th was driven by the high up in eastern New England that wouldn't get out of the way. And by the way, there's another high coming down into the Dakotas. You've got some rather cold air sweeping into the lakes and down into the southeast. This front's going to make it all the way down into South Florida. This high, though, this shot of cold air is nowhere near what the one was for last week. Here's the wide view. We could take the whole U.S. because we need to keep an eye on what's going on in the west since those systems will be coming east. So once this storm goes by, we're going to see improving weather conditions, though cold for everybody pretty much east of the Mississippi. It starts to warm up a little bit Wednesday in the Mississippi Valley, but it stays cold into the east Wednesday and still kind of chilly on Thursday. You have a weakening area of moisture and a weak system that moves into the lakes come Thursday night, Friday, and you notice that the system falls apart. But the stronger system is this one that's coming in to California, just north of San Francisco on Thursday, which the models have been showing. That's a powerhouse that's coming in, bringing rain all the way down to San Diego and heavy snows into the mountains of California. That low is going to move east, and this is going to be the next system that comes out and heads for the Great Lakes. One for next weekend, there's no real cold air left by the time it gets here. So it's mostly rain even for the Great Lakes, and it's a rain affair for the Northeast. So a bit of a break from rainfall, but then it looks like next weekend we could be dealing with, not Saturday so much, but Sunday, we could be dealing with rain. And then that goes by, turns a little colder behind it, and you've got yet another system. This is for December 4th. Now, I'm going to watch this one. This run of the GFS has me a little intrigued for my area, if only because it has suddenly kind of moved the primary low a little bit further to the east. It might be a one-run deal, so let's see if the overnight runs confirm this. But it does have a low that wants to go to the west side of the Appalachians, but just barely, and then it's going to redevelop along the Virginia coast. You notice that it does show some snow at the start for northern areas of my neck of the woods, so there might be enough cold air kind of bleeding in there. We'll see, but let's watch it. Doesn't look all that impressive on this run. Second low forms and comes up. It's mostly rain with snow in northern New England. And then we've got colder air continuing to come down from Canada behind each one of these systems, with actually a pretty significant cold shot. It looks like there's a timing for a shot of significant cold air from December, let's say from December 9th to December 11th, somewhere in that time frame. The models, some of the longer range models have we're showing this, and now that it's come into the range of the GFS, it's showing it here. Now, it'll probably change from this look specifically, but it is showing the cold shots. I'm thinking that we're going to see another one of these big shots of cold air coming down into the eastern U.S. Along about, say, December 9th, December 10th, 11th, somewhere in there. Maybe that opens the door for a a snow threat, a bigger snow threat for the eastern U.S. for the middle part of December. We'll see. Uh, let's take a look at what the upper air is telling us, because in the long range, even though the block does disappear for the most part, it looks like it may want to come back going into the middle part of the month. I'm not seeing, by the way, I'm not really seeing any kind of big ridge flying into the east. Although we'll look at the European after this, and maybe that'll change my mind. But here's that vigorous system. That shortwave just kind of rotates around. You've got the block up in Labrador. You have all this cold air and energy sitting from New England back to the western lakes, but there's no room for any kind of coastal storm development here. The trough is too far to the east, and then it pulls out. You get a little bit of a shortwave ridge going into the weekend, but it's kind of flat on the GFS. And then you start to get the next system for next Sunday that swings through the lakes and goes out. And here comes the next one. Now, in the meantime, you do have blocking that tries to come back in the longer term through Greenland and pushing back southwestward. And that pins this vortex the way it does in the east. Again, it's probably not going to look like this. It's going to change quite a bit over the next 5 to 7 days until we can kind of settle on a general idea of how this is going to play. But we seem to see these models keep coming back to the notion that the trough is going to be in the east and the ridge is going to be in the west over the longer term. At least when I say longer term, maybe through the middle part of December. After that, you know what? It's a dice roll. It's anybody's game. Let's look at the European, starting from tonight. Tonight, we've got our short wave that's swinging out with that storm in the Midwest, and then swinging up into northern New England. Cold air comes back in on Wednesday. Again, no room. You've got this strong jet that runs across the Pacific through the longitude of Hawaii, just north of Hawaii, and then continues into California and into the west. I always like these sort of split flows where you get, a pretty strong Pacific jet that is well to the south, and you've got some kind of connection, a polar connection that develops from Canada. You don't see the polar connection part through this coming week and next weekend, but even the European, this is at 240 hours. This is where we start to see it maybe morph into what the GFS was trying to do. So let's just illustrate it here. And give me 1 second. Just want to make sure you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, and you are, and that's good. It's always good to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, so there you have it. Nope, hang on. You don't have it. Back to the paint box. Now you got the paint box. Okay, so here's our friendly neighborhood European at day 10. And you can see here we suddenly have this connection that runs from northern Canada down into the eastern part of the United States. You've got a trough there. Let me make the trough red. Okay. Big cutoff low here. Big upper high right into the Gulf of Alaska. You can see how the flow is split. Okay. You've got winds in the upper atmosphere that are doing this, and you've got winds in the upper atmosphere that are doing this. Split flows can be very dangerous because you keep getting these short waves in the southern part of the flow that they could continue to come into the west and into California. Sometimes you get little divers that come down from the northern part of that split that get involved, and of course the overall trough that's in the east. This is December 5th, so this is rather cold air if that winds up verifying. So this would actually suggest that maybe, at least from the standpoint of the world the European is living in, that there might be a significant shot of cold air before we get to December 10th or 11th. That maybe we'll get something behind the system that is forecast for next weekend. So let's take a look at the Europeans' view and see where it's taken us. So you know, the limitation of the maps that are available with the European make it a bit tough. The ones that are available publicly, so we kind of have to do the best we can with what we got. I'm jumping. Here's our. So we're going in 24-hour increments here. So this was this morning with the low in southeastern Kansas. You see it there. By tomorrow morning, it's in northwest Ohio. That's pretty consistent with the other models. Now you've got that secondary low with a fairly deep low just east northeast of Boston. Again, this is going to favor big snows for northeastern New York, northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and much of interior Maine, where it always snows. And it's still hanging around there Tuesday into Wednesday. So it's a pretty lengthy event before the low deepens and moves away. It's kind of waiting for the upper trough to pull out. And that's where you get this shot, the cold air for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday into the east. Now here comes the next system. Got a pretty well-defined 991 low there in Oklahoma. This is next Saturday. High pressure sitting in northern New York. And now the low is going into eastern Iowa with the high up in northern Maine, and you'll probably have a big front down here and some sort of secondary low that'll develop. And in fact, by the time we get to Monday, you've got an 89 low north of Sault Ste. Marie, but you see how the isobars are kind of stretched down to southern New England. So there's probably another low that forms down to the south in the Carolinas, perhaps inland, and then runs northeastward. So this would be another rain event for the Northeast. Then that goes away, and now you've got this shot of cold air. There's an Arctic front here on the surface. If you look where the isobars are kind of this indentation here, the little V shape here. So there's an Arctic front that's running east-west across northern Michigan, back up into northeastern Minnesota. So that swings through the east sometime around December, maybe late Tuesday afternoon or evening on the 4th, bringing a shot of colder air. Just want to see, let's look at the anomaly on the European. That's pretty sizable below normal temperatures here by Wednesday morning, December 5th. So that's a pretty decent cold shot. We're looking at the 850 millibar level, or roughly about 4,500, 5,000 feet, somewhere in there. And it's indicating anomalies at that level of about 12 degrees Celsius below average. So that's 20 degrees below average. It'll probably translate into a little less on the surface, but it would be a fairly decent shot of cold air for you cold air weather lovers. Okay, so that pretty much kind of wraps it up tonight with respect to what the weather's looking like. I honestly believe that we're in this kind of evolutionary process with the overall pattern, and the early snow and the early cold, I think, has whet the snow lovers' appetites to think that we should be seeing this stuff pretty much now on a regular basis, and it just doesn't quite work that way. What we saw on the 15th of November in the New York City area, and the cold shot that we saw in the northeast and the northern mid-Atlantic. Remember, we were talking about temperatures here that ran about 20 to 25 degrees below average. That is an anomaly. I mean, that's not something that happens every year or every other year or every fifth year, okay? This was one of those, every 10, 15 years or so, you get, a shot of cold air of great magnitude that comes down early. I think the big question is whether is what happened, is what's going on now a harbinger of the future pattern, or are we going to see this eventually play itself out where the pattern flips later in December to something milder for later December and January? Big question mark. I will say, some of the longer range climate models, which frankly, I don't have any use for because they're so ridiculously volatile. So they kind of jump on whatever's going on at the moment. If the models are emphasizing blocking, they'll suddenly go from being warmer than normal to colder than normal. And then models will start changing a little bit, and then they flip to the extreme in the other direction. I really, to me, it almost boils down to letting it just be a coin toss as far as dealing with the long range is concerned. So try not to get too wrapped up in that. Try to stay focused inside the 10-day time frame. I think you'll be a much saner person. Um, Now, 18,000 feet is ED. 500 millibars is 18,000 feet. 850 is about 4,500, 4,700 feet somewhere. I round it off and just say 5,000. As far as library appearances are concerned, the only one I have booked at the moment is for the Babylon Library on Long Island, and that is going to be on Wednesday, December 12th at 7 o'clock. Okay, Frank Sorolla. Alabama is not about to get a 2-foot snowstorm tomorrow. I will that we can guarantee. Actually, 99 Wolves. This is your storm up in Chicagoland. Joe Icon model shows storm this Friday. Snow north of 195, rain south. Okay, hold on, Izzy D. Hang on one second. I didn't even look at the Icon model. So you know what? Before I show it, I'm going to look at it off stage, let's say. Hang on one second. I wouldn't call it a storm. It's got a low. It's got a weakening low that's moving east with an area of rain and snow. And yeah, it does have snow on the northern edge of it. I actually don't think that is that inconsistent with what the GFS was doing, just that the GFS has it much weaker. This does not look like there's a whole lot there in the upper air. It's pretty flat. So it's kind of a weak little shortwave moving along. I don't know how much you could wind up getting out of this. There may not be enough room, being that you have all this energy to the east with a big low that's sitting out in the Atlantic, and you also have this energy coming in that's going to be coming into the plains for the system that's going to happen over the weekend. So there may not be room. This was supposed to be around the time, if you remember, that the models had some sort of big storm signals. All that being said, however, sometimes these innocent systems can, produce a little bit of a surprise for somebody. And I won't rule that out. I think this could wind up actually being a little bit further south than what the GFS has and what some of the other models might be indicating. So maybe the Icon has the right idea, but I think you might wind up with something that goes a little bit further south than what's being indicated. So let's watch what the trends are, and I will show it to you so everybody, so you snow lovers can whet your appetite a little bit. Now here we go. And this is the Icon, or the German model. This is for Friday afternoon. We're out about as far out as it goes. See if what it's compared to the GFS. See, the GFS has something coming east. You see it here across the Great Lakes and into the Ohio Valley, and then it just kind of peters it out. But I think the GFS may wind up being too far north with this, that you're going to have a weaker system that is further south. Out of curiosity, I always like to go back. The new Icon is just beginning, but we won't be hanging around for that. So this was the Icon run from earlier today. So it's already further south. You can see that low just south of Long Island here. This is at 126 hours. So the new Icon actually did shift. I'm sorry, the 18Z actually did shift a little bit further south. Judging from what I'm seeing in the upper air, I would I would suspect that you could wind up seeing this shift a bit more south as we go through the next couple of days. Sometimes these innocent systems can surprise. I would rather be deeper into the winter with more cold air around to for it to have perhaps a little bit, maybe get a little bit more interest in it. But it's a little bit, it's too early, and while it will be cold Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday below average, it's not going to be crazy cold like what we had back through Thanksgiving. PlayStation boss, rain bands on the radar near Chicago are insane, and now you've changed over to snow it's changed over to snow in Chicagoland. It is back. Okay, sorry for the interruption. I think that might be a hint for me to wrap it up. So I think that's what we're going to do. I'm going to wrap it up at this point. Chris Alley, hope to see you too in Babylon. Those of you who have Android devices, okay, those of you who have Android devices, you have, and you're in the northern New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, lower Hudson Valley, and coastal Connecticut areas, you can download my free app and have fun with it. Okay? We're going to actually probably do a little upgrading on that app. There might be a couple of new things going forward. So there's the link for it. It's absolutely free. So by all means, download it. If you're in northern New Jersey to southern New England and everybody in between, this will work for you. If you like to read my website posts and you're outside the area, this will also work for you as well. So by all means, give it a shot. The iPhone version, hopefully this week, waiting for Apple to give the blessing, and maybe that'll come in the next couple of days. As soon as it does, I will most definitely put the link up here on the chat board. And with respect to tomorrow is Monday, and tomorrow is Cyber Monday. So if you you can also support my channel in a way that really doesn't cost you a dime if you shop on Amazon. And I'm going to put the Amazon link here right there. So there you go. Josh Byrne just downloaded it. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think, okay? Sierra Sites, thank you for being here. And Johnny Quest, thank you for being here as always. And try and stay dry. Here's a way you can support my channel, and it doesn't cost you a dime. If you shop on Amazon, just use the Joe Stradamus link that I just put up. And it's also on the descriptor to this live stream and the descriptor to this video, because we are a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and its affiliated sites. So if you shop on Amazon and get some stuff, Amazon throws me back a little bit of coin for bringing you there, and it's out of their pocket, and you get your stuff at decent prices, hopefully, and I get a couple of cigars out of it, and everybody's happy. So by all means, use the Joe Stradamus link on Cyber Monday. And the only other thing, very quickly, is for those of you who really want to expand your weather experience, you should consider joining my weather platform on Patreon, and there's the link there. It's just $2 a month, and you get exclusive posts, some that are on the website, but a lot of stuff that's not. You also get a private live stream just for Patreon members, usually once a day. And you can message me at any time, and I will respond to you in a timely manner. So it's a nice group of weather people and weather interested people. So you don't have the flat earthers, you don't have the geoengineers and all the rest of it. And there will be Dio Dan Kumar tomorrow. We're back on a normal schedule. So figure on a YouTube live stream tomorrow night. Well, not quite a normal schedule, but normal enough. So sometime tomorrow evening, I'll let you know what time. I'm probably thinking possibly 7 o'clock. It might be a little bit later than that, depending on what I'm doing during the day. So just keep an eye on the channel. I'll put the time up as soon as I know. Patreon, folks, you'll get your private live stream tomorrow morning, probably around 9:30 or 10 o'clock. I think maybe I might actually even wait for a part of the new GFS to come out. So maybe we'll push it back to more like 11 o'clock or 11:15. So we have a good chunk of the new GFS, and we can take a look at what that's doing for later in the week and going into the longer term. Okay, thanks so much for being here tonight. Hope your holiday was great, and we will see you tomorrow.